Good afternoon. Bonjour. I'm Murray Rankin. I'm the Member of Parliament for Victoria, British Columbia, and I thank you all for coming today. I'm just so pleased to have with me a remarkable young Canadian, Rachel Parent, who I'm going to be introducing more fully in a moment. She has worked so incredibly hard to achieve a single, simple, but critically important goal, namely, that we require labeling of those foods that we eat that contain genetically modified ingredients. Rachel Parent built an organization called the Kids' Right to Know and has taken her campaign from coast to coast. And she's here today in Ottawa with that campaign, and she had the opportunity, as she will tell you, to meet the Health Minister, Ms. Rona Ambrose, yesterday. I'm not sure how many of you have seen her amazing TED Talks or seen her debate with the famous Kevin O'Leary, but this is a formidable campaigner. She's at the forefront of a movement that is definitely gaining momentum both in Canada and the United States, the movement to require the government to tell us what we eat and what we feed our kids. So I've introduced motion M480 in the House of Commons, calling for the mandatory labeling of food products containing ingredients that have been genetically modified. For a decade, polls have showed that nearly 90% of Canadians support labeling genetically modified foods, but the Conservatives and the Liberals to date, as government, have failed to do that. A Health Canada report on food labeling released in June also determined Canadians want the government to act on this measure. We've had endorsements, thanks to Rachel and others from industry, environmental organizations, advocacy groups from coast to coast. We think the idea is an idea whose time has come. Labeling genetically modified foods will allow people to make their own choices about the food they eat, about the food that they feed their kids. So I would like to thank Rachel for her incredible work. I'm going to seek all parties' support for the work that we have undertaken to get labeling of GMOs, and I am just so proud to introduce to you one of my modern heroes, Rachel Parent.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Murray. And I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who came. My name is Rachel Parent. I'm 15 years old, and I've been creating awareness about GMOs for a long time now. I'm the founder of Kids' Right to Know. So my organization, our main goal, is to create awareness about GMOs. Also, what we'd like to do is get mandatory GMO labeling in Canada. Our mission statement is to have kids of all generations taking leadership roles to push for transparency, freedom of choice, and the ability to help each other make informed decisions so that we can live better lives and a better future, whether it be about food, the environment, people, animals, plants, or water. A planet for all and all for one planet. So, why this is important to me? It's everyone's democratic right to know what's in our food. To me, I believe that we all deserve the right to know and the freedom to choose what we put in our bodies and what we put in children's bodies. I may not be a scientist, and of course I don't hold a university degree, and I'm not a prof at a university, but I'm a teenager, and I am concerned about my future and the future of all kids alike. Also, over 60 countries around the world already have mandatory GMO labeling. So why not us? Don't we deserve the same freedom of choice that they already have? Yesterday, I had the honor of meeting with Honourable Rona Ambrose, the Minister of Health here in Canada. And I am honored to be able to meet with such an influential person. She was absolutely amazing, and we got to discuss how GMOs were really impacting Canadians. We also brought up the many studies that have been done and how GMO labeling could actually benefit citizens of Canada. In a statement that she made, she actually said that GMO labeling will not affect prices on consumers' food, and it will not impact the prices that the manufacturers have to pay in order to put the labels on the food. Another thing she said is that it would be in the best interest of companies to put GMO labeling on their food. I'm really happy with how the meeting went, and we got to discuss a lot of the issues that are happening right now surrounding the health of GMOs and how it's impacting our health. What's happening with GMOs is that GMOs have been linked to digestive disorders, organ damage, even things like tumors and allergies. And this is so important for Canadian parents to know. I mean, if I were a parent, I'd want to know what I was feeding my child. So I believe it's every parent's right to know what they are feeding their kids, and every child's right to know what they are feeding themselves. Another thing I'd like to bring up is that polls consistently show that the 90% of the people in Canada want GMOs labeled. So this is why I encourage and urge every MP to listen to their constituents and also to support Motion M480 started by Murray Rankin. Thank you.
So I guess at this stage, I'd ask if anyone has any questions that they would like to ask either to myself or to Rachel.
I have a couple.
Here we go.
Hi, I'm Kelsey Johnson. I am the agriculture reporter on the Hill with iPolitics, and I also write a column with the Western Producer. GMOs, of course, is a very controversial topic within the agriculture community. Mm-hmm. I was wondering what made you, when you went into your meeting with Minister Ambrose, what were you hoping to get out of the meeting? And did you get what you wanted out of the meeting?
What I wanted to get out of the meeting was simply to share the information I had with her and to give her these studies, because most likely she hadn't seen any of these studies that I have given her. And so what I really wanted her to do was to review these studies, to give them to her scientists, and to make an educated decision, and also hopefully influence her to even consider GMO labeling, because it's important for all Canadians.
Now we're currently revamping our labeling system here in Canada that was announced over the summer. Did the minister give you any indication as to whether or not GMO labeling would be included in the new label diagrams that are coming out, or have they still been left off?
They've still been left off, and as a matter of fact, she said that they would have to review the science that we gave her and the studies, that she would look into it, but there was no indication made that it would be on the actual reports and that it would become one of the new labels.
Actual reports?
On the reports, her first report, it stated that GMO labeling was actually something that consumers wanted. But on her second report, it was not there. And she told me that she wouldn't label it for now, simply because it's not considered a health issue yet, although there have been many studies indicating that there are health issues.
Now, GMO initially started as a way to increase yields in different crops and is often still used as a way to deal with drought, frost, disease, pesticides. What do you say to farmers who will argue that GMO is an integral part to their industry and how their operations work?
Well, as a matter of fact, I have some studies as well proving that GMOs actually do not increase yields, and actually they are increasing pesticide and herbicide use, because with GMO crops, there's pesticide producing and herbicide resistant. For herbicide resistant crops, they can spray thousands of pounds of herbicides onto these crops without killing them. And for pesticide producing, what happens is some of these, the seed is inserted with a pesticide. And some of the bugs that are eating these crops are actually becoming resistant to it. So then farmers are spraying thousands of pounds of pesticides on top of that, which is then going into our soil and our water. So it's actually hurting the environment in the long term.
But you can also argue that yields have gone up. I mean, if you look at yields from wheat from 20 years ago and yields of wheat today, wheat's not a great example because there's no GMO wheat, but if you look at yields of canola, say, from 20 years ago and the yields of canola that we saw last year, there has definitely been an increase in yield. So if GMO is not the reason for the increase in yield, what is the increase? What is the reason in your view for those increases?
There's also been a lot of selective breeding that has contributed to the increased yields. So that's what I believe. And actually, a study from the United Nations even said that GMO crop yields are not higher, and they even tested organic and conventional crops, and it said that their crops were higher.
To play devil's advocate,
yep.
You said 90% of Canadians are asking for GMO labeling on their foods. But a recent finding from Ag Canada found that less than 20% of Canadians actually have any understanding of how agriculture functions in general. Mm-hmm. So are you convinced that this 90% of Canadians are making an informed decision on GMOs, or are they just following a trend?
Well, as you were saying, about 20% of Canadians know about GMOs. And from the Canadians that I've talked to, especially in schools, who had no clue about GMOs, when I talked to them afterwards, after giving them a presentation about them, every single student in a class said that they wanted GMOs labeled so they could choose for themselves. I think if people were informed about GMOs and they knew what was happening within agriculture and what was happening to their food, everyone would want GMOs labeled.
Way for people to avoid GMOs, though? Because 95% of corn crops are genetically modified.
There are ways. It's extremely hard, and I'm not going to lie about that. I mean, I spend hours in the grocery store looking for non-GMO food. But the best way for now to avoid it is to avoid anything with corn, canola, soy, sugar from sugar beets, Hawaiian papaya, and yellow squash and zucchini. And this is a huge list, so it's hard for most people to avoid eating things like this. So that's exactly why I want GMOs labeled, just so that we have the right to know. It doesn't have to be a warning label. It just to let me know, because, you know, if some people want GMOs and they want to eat GMO, if they're pro-GMO, they can eat more of it. And for the people who want to avoid it, it just makes it easier.
So if it's not a warning label, how would you, like, how do you envision what this label would look like?
Well, I mean, let's face it, we already label things like made from concentrate, while they're farmed, country of origin. They're not safety issues. They're simply informing Canadian citizens of what happened to this product. And so, I mean, even things like irradiated and enriched, they're not safety issues either. So I think it could be the exact same thing. I mean, Health Canada is convinced that GMOs are not a safety concern, so at least give us the right to choose.
Not a safety concern, why should people worry about it? I mean, if it's not a danger to their health. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are a few studies that have suggested that there is internal discomfort or can lead to cancer or whatever. But if Health Canada is saying that it is not a safety issue, and the broad sense of science for the most part right now is deeming it either inconclusive or not a safety issue, why should we label something that might make people think it's a safety issue?
First of all, there are many, many studies that claim that GMOs, or not claim, but show that GMOs are a safety issue. And I've met with many of these scientists as well. Second of all, Health Canada nor the FDA do any independent studies, and they rely only on the very companies that make the GMO products or the GMO ingredients such as the corn, the canola, soy, the sugar beets. So those companies that are doing the testing are doing a maximum of 90-day testing on rats, which does not determine how it will affect us in the long term. So that's why I just want labeling so that I can choose for myself whether I want to eat GMOs or not. I mean, I have the choice to choose between made from concentrate and not made from concentrate. So why not give me the choice of made with genetically modified ingredients or made without genetically modified ingredients?
Next step then?
Our next step is we're going to continue trying to get GMOs labeled in Canada. We're going to keep informing Canadian citizens about this issue. And we're going to support Motion M480. And I think that'll be our next big step, is trying to really push for this motion to go through. Because that way, all Canadian citizens have the right to know what's in their food.
Has the minister promised you another meeting after she's read all the material that you presented her with today?
In fact, she's said that she is willing to continue this discussion, which is a great sign, and hopefully we'll be having many more meetings to come. Yes, and another thing is that we should be having a meeting with Health Canada rather soon about
Canada, the department
officials.
itself? Officials?
Yeah.
And Ambrose is arranging that meeting
Yes.
for you? Okay. Unless I missed anything, is there anything else I should know?
I think you're good.
It's good.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.